Greetings, people who really like the accordion and for some strange reason tolerate my videos. In this video, I'd like to talk about the harmonic series as it directly relates to the accordion. And for our example harmonic series, we're going to use a fundamental tone of C2. And that's on this chart that I've showed many, many times. This is called the harmonic series, sometimes called the overtone series. And we're using a fundamental tone of C2, which you can get on a piano string or a guitar string. If you loosen the tuning peg on the E2 string, you can get this tone. And the harmonic series is comprised of the fundamental tone and partials, or you could say the fundamental tone and the overtones. Either way, it's okay. I just call it the harmonic series. So let's talk about it as it directly relates to the accordion, and then I'll move on to some different topics. I made this chart and I try to show how there's ranges on the harmonic series. Let's call it low, middle, and high. All right, let's look at the actual chart here. And we see here's your low, your C2, your fundamental. All right, and then your middle would roughly start here at the C4, and your high would start here roughly around the C5. Okay, so that's what I mean when I talk about the low, range, middle, and high. Now in that harmonic series, in the low range, let's say roughly from C2 to C4, several things happen here. We find our first accordion range of the bass range, and then we find a tenor range. Okay, we find that down here from C2, it's hard for me to see this with my tiny phone, to C3. All right, there's your bass. And then from C3 to C4, you get your tenor range. And you might recall that from my other chart, which I showed a million times. See, your bass range, then your tenor range. I've showed that many, many times. So you see on the harmonic series, with the fundamental of C2, you get your first two ranges for your accordion reeds, right? And then we talked about this before. The intervals that we receive are the perfect intervals. The octave, the fifth, perfect fifth, the perfect fourth, we get that. And then as far as structure, like for composition and writing music and such, we find that the harmonic series, by its nature, tells us to keep our spacing wide. When you have low notes playing down there, you don't want them too close together. It gets muddy, it gets crappy. You want to keep your notes apart. All right? Now for the middle range, this harmonic series with the fundamental of C2 gives us our accordion alto range. And you could even say contralto too. But let's just look at the alto range for now. And that would be roughly C4 to C5. And on our handy chart, that would be C4 to C5. All right. So what do we get? We get our accordion range called alto. And then for intervals, we get our thirds, major and minor. And these are the building blocks, the tools that we use to make chords. These are really, really critical. Now, as far as structure, you get your tonal centers. You know, from your major and minor spacings, you get your tonal centers. You get your different moods and flavors based on which major third you choose as your foundation. It's major or minor. You get that feel, that certain mood. And then also your spacing for writing music or playing those notes together, you want to enter into the intermediate range. All right? The spacing doesn't have to be real far apart, doesn't have to be real too tight. Let me show you this from an orchestration book, an example, which is a great example, by the way. In this example, all right, this is really hard to see with this tiny phone. But see, relating to the intermediate range, you have the violas here, okay? And the violas are divided. Half of them play one line and half play the other. But in this example, if you can actually see this, you'll see an example of a major third here and here. You'll see a perfect fourth, an octave, a perfect fifth. It's really hard to see. But that's a good example of writing in the intermediate range there. Right in the middle, the violas. They would be playing in the, let's say, alto or contralto area, or range. And this is a really good example of that. So I wanted to show that. And then you have the the high area of the harmonic series as it relates to the accordion. That's what the fundamental C2, all right? So here we find our soprano range. And once again, we get our handy chart and we see that here's the soprano range, C5 to B2. But on the accordion, for me personally, the soprano area, the reed set's kind of worthless. I don't use it. I don't have it and I don't use it. But some accordion players like that high stuff, those high sounds. Anyway, I don't care for it. So anyway, so in the high range then we get our soprano range for the accordion. And then the intervals you see here are the seconds. That would be an augmented second, a major second, or a minor second, and that's what we use to build scales. We get that. And then we also get large, all right, large, non-perfect intervals, which we'll discuss in a moment, right? And spacing-wise, when you write music, spacing can be tight. It's perfectly okay and it sounds good, like with your flutes and your clarinets and such. You can play high stuff and get away with it because it sounds okay. And it sounds okay because it's mimicking the harmonic series. See, you have your wide, loose spacing here. You have your intermediate, and up here you have your tight. And nature gives you this. This is a beautiful thing, this harmonic series. One of the most beautiful things nature has given us. So we have that. And now getting back to the large, non-perfect intervals, I want to go over this. Now, I'm not a trained, educated person, and I have no right to talk about this, but I do talk about it because it's fascinating. When you play the accordion, the 120 bass accordion, they call it that. It's actually an accordion with 120 bass buttons, all right? When you play that, you have to consider chords because when you play one of the chord buttons, all right, because you have 4 ranks of chord buttons here, you would call them rows, and when you use each one, you're going to get chord tones, whether you like it or not. So you cannot avoid the concept or the idea of chords when you play these 4 bottom rows of buttons. You have to keep it in mind. So, as it relates to the harmonic series, let's take a quick look here. Now, in previous videos, I think I showed this chart. All right, I showed this chart here when I was talking about chords. And here's an example, like my C augmented chord in my system, or in my system I'd have a C major chord. And I showed how there are major intervals or minor. I showed the half steps, blah, blah, blah. And I did that because when you play the accordion buttons, you must keep in mind chordal structure because whether you like it or not, you're going to be playing groups of tones by pressing only one button. You're going to be playing groups of tones. So you must keep chords in mind. We talked about that. And I say that, I say that to preface this. Let's say you're a jazz or a classical musician. There's generally spoken or unspoken rules, whereas they say if you have a chord that has a minor third interval in it, all right, and in that same chord you have a minor 9, a tone at the interval of a minor 9, they say don't do it. They say don't mix the minor third with the minor 9. That's what they say. And that goes all the way back not only to what you hear with your ears, but it goes back to the harmonic series. Now let's take a peek at that. You see, for example, on this sample chart, on this harmonic series, you have an E, okay, that's an E4, and you have a G4. It's hard for me to see this on my phone, but I think we have an E4 and a G4, which would be a minor interval here, okay? Now we look up here and we see an F sharp 5. All right? Now that's in this sample harmonic series with the fundamental of C2. And I say that to say this. If you have a chord incorporating those same notes I just showed you, let's say you have an E minor 9. That's my chord symbol that I use. Here's the alphanumeric, E minor 9 chord, all right? Here's the chord. Now you see here, E to G is a minor third. It's an interval of a minor third, all right? And up here, you have from E to F sharp, just like on this sample chart, all right? Just like on my sample, all right? You have an interval of a major 9. So you see you have, in that chord, an interval of a major third, and here you have here you have a minor third, and here you have a major 9. And this is a chord you get. And it sounds good. People use it all the time. But what happens over here, when you have that minor third interval, just like on my harmonic series chart, and in your chord, you have an F natural, you now have an interval of a minor 9. See, minor 9 here, a minor third here, and this is the symbol I would use to write it. And here was your alphanumeric. But it doesn't matter how you write it, it doesn't work. It sounds like crap. It's just crappy. And you say, but Joey, I'm a smart person, and I can think this through theoretically, psychologically, and I can get around that. No. No. You cannot think your way out of the harmonic series. It's not going to work, and not only that, but your ears are going to say, that's a bunch of crap, stop playing that. For the love of God, stop playing that. That's what's going to happen. Now, if you look at it from a different point of view, let's look at it from a chordal structural point of view. So here we have the E minor 9, all right? I showed you that. I showed you these same notes. So down here, what you have is you have an E minor chord, all right? But above that, you have a B minor chord. You see? Hope I'm saying this right. E minor here, and you have a B minor, all right? So what you have is you have a minor interval here and a minor interval here within the two chords, okay? It's called, maybe you could call it a polychord. You could do that. And that's acceptable because theoretically, as far as your ear is concerned, it's going to be workable. But look at over here. You have an E minor chord, all right? And you have a B diminished chord on top of that. In your polychord, you have a minor, and you have over top of that, hovering over top is that diminished. So what you have then structurally is you have a minor chord and a diminished chord. And not only theoretically, but orally, as far as the ears are concerned, it's going to sound crappy because it's weak. It's theoretically weak. And even if you don't believe any of that, the harmonic series shows you that. Let's say you looked at your E, all right, and you looked up here at your F sharp, how it falls naturally. Now this arrow means that this F sharp on your keyboard doesn't exactly match the F sharp of the harmonic series, but it's very close. It's close enough to make my point. So the point is, you can't think your way out of this. You can't cheat, use your brain, say, oh, no, my brain is superior to the harmonic series. Well, it's not going to work. And let's say you change the name of your chord, or let's say you visually looked upon or looked at the chord differently. You said, I have a different perspective. Let's say you have a G dominant 7 chord with an E bass, all right? Instead of this alphanumeric name, let's say, no, I see a G dominant 7 chord with an E bass. Well, let's say you see that. Let's say you see the E bass, all right? And you see the G dominant 7 above it. It still doesn't work. It sounds like crap. It's just a bunch of crap. You can look at it this way, all right? Or you can look at it this way, All right? But the Harmonic Series has the final say. And as it relates to the accordion, it fits in beautifully. It fits in beautifully. That is with the fundamental of C2. But it fits in beautifully. And I'd like to say I'll never talk about the Harmonic Series again, but you never know. But that's it. I'd like to move on to something different. So thanks for being really, really patient, and good night.